Come along with us, me, Sophia and my now husband James, an interabled couple, on our first ever cruise experience to the Norwegian fjords on P&O's Iona. We are on our honeymoon and we'll be showing you what life on board Iona and in Norway is like in this vlog. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe and we hope you enjoy the vlog.
What's wrong with you?
As you can tell, we were really excited. Our trip began with me in the shuttle bus with the luggage, and James ended up zooming over to the cruise terminal in his wheelchair to meet us. James has something called a tri-ride which attaches to his wheelchair, so he is a major speed freak, which I'm sure you're going to notice throughout the vlog. We booked a sea view cabin, which was perfect for James's wheelchair and his tri-ride, and of course all of the rest of the luggage. Bearing in mind this was our first ever cruise, so we weren't really sure what to expect, but honestly it was like the most premium hotel you've ever been to. We were really happy that we had a sea view cabin, as we were able to just chill in the room but not feel too claustrophobic without windows. And in the end I spent a lot of time relaxing on that cabin bench. It was so comfortable. Whenever we go away somewhere, I just have to jump on the bed. It seems to have become a bit of a tradition for us. So this is almost like my comfy bed test, and this bed definitely passed. For an extra cost, you could order room service, which is what we did at the latter stage of the trip. We wanted to make the most of the room with it being so comfortable, and the TV in there shows a whole range of movies and TV series, so it was a real home from home. I didn't actually film this, but the door to our bathroom and the door to get out of our cabin were both on a sensor, which was great because James could maintain his independence, and if I was still getting ready and he wanted to go off and explore, then he could do so without any obstructions or worries. Our cruise was a week long, and out of that week we had 2 days at sea. On those days there was loads of things to do, lots of activities planned on the itinerary that you would get every morning, as well as lots of places to eat. We spent a lot of our time when at sea looking out at the views on the deck top, soaking up the fact that we were on the ship, and there was unexpected sunshine in Norway, so some days we would be sunbathing. We would also go out at night to see the midnight sun, which was very surreal and cool to see sunlight in the early hours of the morning. If you are going to go on this cruise, highly recommend you staying up a little bit later to see that, because definitely a highlight. I ended up having a bit of a pamper session, and my wedding nails at this point were getting a little bit outgrown, so I decided to get my nails done. I went for a classic red, which is my favourite. The girl who did them was so sweet and she really took her time. Highly recommend doing this if you're planning on going on P&O, because there is literally nothing like having a bit of a self-care session on a ship. If you are hungry, do not watch the next part of this video because you're about to see a whole load of food. You have been warned. We are big foodies, so naturally we plan to try as many of the restaurants as possible, including the Beach House, the Olive Grove, Sindhu is one of the restaurants that we highly recommend, as the dishes were delicious and authentic. You do need to book before you go though and pay a bit extra, but it's definitely worth going to. Plus we went on Captain's Night, so it was a really nice excuse to get dressed up, and it made it feel even more special. We also ate at the main restaurants, which you've essentially already paid for once you get on the ship. The food there was amazing and it felt really plush, considering you didn't feel like you were paying any extra. There's 3 main restaurants and they all get very busy, but you're bound to find a table at one of them. We also grabbed sweet treats like ice cream from Ripples, and also made the most of the late night snacks from the main buffet Horizon. Our first official stop was Stavanger, and we had arrived in the old part of the town called Gamle Stavanger. There were a fair few cool and quirky independent shops on this side of the town, and we felt like it was a real creative quarter, which we loved naturally as two creatives. Although the cobblestones did become a bit of a nuisance for James in his wheelchair, for it being a historical part of the town, it was to be expected. Here in the UK, we have a shop called Flying Tiger, which sells all range of goods, from snacks to homeware to stationery. And it kind of felt like we found a very similar shop called Normal, with the exact same layout, which was quite interesting. We then found this really cute cafe in a side street and enjoyed this freshly marinated chicken and salad. There were also lots of cafes with the cutest boho outdoor seating. And it was definitely worth walking up, as you could get a great view of the marina from here. We then decided to do something we've never done before, get on a bus tour. Iona looks massive here, which on board you can't grasp as well. Back on board with all of the snacks we picked up, and we decided to head for the open deck to wave and say goodbye to Stavanger port as we slowly sailed away towards the next place. Our next stop was in the beautiful village of Olden. Snow-capped mountains surrounded by mist with wooden houses set up on the hill. It was so idyllic and honestly looked like you were looking at a postcard. This was hands down my favourite place out of the whole trip. Here we found the perfect spot to drink our coffees before carrying on with our exploration. Yeah, you're fine. Before coming on the trip, we'd booked this accessible coach tour around the Fjords. It was perfect for James as he had an assigned place for his wheelchair, he was all strapped up and safe, and he felt really looked after, which was the main thing. Again, we're not really ones to go on a coach tour or a bus tour, so we were really pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. It was really informative though, and we got to go to various viewpoints, and there were plenty of photo opportunities, and we got to see things that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. So highly recommend you doing that if you do go on this particular cruise to Olden.
Now in the cabins, many cabins have like we call the Uppbeat. It's literally an outdoor toilet, and it's a little cabin with a hole.
Yeah,
That's it. And you need to do with that. In the winter, it's really unfriendly. But you have to do it, and there you go.
There are only a few shops in Olden and not that many things to do. So our plan at this point was to go back to the ship, but one thing we do wish we had done was the Lowen Sky Lift. I think that's how you say it. Go and check that out on Google because it looks amazing. Our next stop was Helsit, which was James's favourite. He thought it had a Canadian feel to it. Like Olden, there wasn't many shops there, but we did find this very cute independent cafe where we picked up pastries and coffee before we started our hike up the hill. Helsit is a great place if you're into your hiking, if you want to get those steps in, and if you're into water sports. Annoyingly, we couldn't get onto any of the very limited accessible excursions for any of the water sports, but if you are going to go on this cruise, plan ahead once you've booked because things get snapped up really quickly. The mountains were again very beautiful, and there was this crazy loud waterfall which you could not have a conversation near it, it was that loud. This was the day we had the unexpected sunshine, and we hadn't checked what the temperature was, but it felt like 30 degrees, so really hot for Norway. Once we'd finished exploring for the day, we decided to make the most of it by sunbathing on deck, whilst looking out for all of the waterfalls as we went through the fjords towards our fourth and final location. We arrived in Haugesund, I hope I said that right, a seaport town which is considered one of the best places to explore the Viking period. So if Vikings are your thing, this is definitely the place to go. This was also once home for many Viking kings for centuries. First on the agenda, of course, we had to get our coffee fix before checking out the local antique shops in search for some goodies. I've already seen by looking back at this footage that there's a few things that I definitely missed, which is slightly heartbreaking, but it just wasn't meant to be, I guess. We then wanted to check out the traditional houses and look at all the architecture. This park was also really nice, and it felt like a local hotspot as we didn't see any other English people there, which was quite nice. We then came across this museum which was described to us as being accessible, but then when it came to it, it wasn't great for James and his tri ride because it was a bit hickledy-pickledy and he couldn't go into all of the buildings. And then we got told that we could have got in for free, but they charged us before telling us that, so it was all a bit confusing. As you can imagine, we were a little disappointed with that experience, but the silver lining was that the ticket we paid for got us into another art gallery just down the road, which thankfully had an accessible toilet, and we also got to see some local Norwegian art, which was really interesting. For lunch we stumbled across this very trendy spot called Luch Food, where we had these huge yummy sandwiches. On the way back to the ship we spotted these massive jellyfish, quite possibly the biggest wild jellyfish I've ever seen. We soaked up the last of our time here in Norway, and we looked out over this bridge for a while, just sort of reflecting over our amazing honeymoon. And of course it was very bittersweet. The next day we had a day at sea, so we had time to just relax. We then spent the day having room service and just recharging before we got back to Southampton on British ground and concluding our honeymoon. So I think as far as it being our first experience on a cruise ship and it being on P&O, it was really amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just magical. I think it's the best.
Norway itself was amazing,
Yeah.
and I feel like that was quite a big bucket list sort of place to go to, for us anyway. Yeah, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think the same. I just think everything was just perfect. Like it suited us in terms of having our base and the room, and as we've gone over the accessibility and late night snacks. And then
Yeah, they were really good. Do you remember that mum and son? This mum and son were in the lift and they had a whole tray of food.
Yeah.
It started at like 11.
They were taking it back to their room. There is a surcharge for room service, but you know.
Yeah, which, as I mentioned, we used room service a lot at the end of the trip, just because I think we were knackered, to be honest. Like by the time the trip kind of was coming to an end, you don't want that feeling where you've been on holiday and you've done all this stuff and then you go home and then you feel like you need another holiday to just get over it.
It's just like a hotel room, chill out.
Oh,
and
it was
I think
so nice.
one of the reasons
I
we were so knackered is the midnight sun. Like I personally love the sun, so just to be able to be out up until midnight and get obviously it was like setting at that point.
It was so cool.
It extends your days. It's a nice way. Like summer in the UK, obviously the sunsets are like 10 anyway or something. But
yeah, I missed
to get those extra 2 hours, because we are night owls, it was quite nice.
I feel like you make the most of it when you're on holiday anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really good. Obviously, this isn't an ad or haven't been sponsored by P&O, but yeah, just wanted.
P&O,
if you're watching,
we will go again. We'll do a world cruise if you want to.
We did actually book another trip whilst we were on board, and it was called the Baltic Cruise.
2 weeks.
And it was supposed to be on Britannia. Unfortunately, P&O have cancelled that cruise. Interestingly, between May and September, any cruises that were on Britannia have been cancelled. So we kind of think maybe they're renovating the ship.
Yeah, maybe there's something with the ship or the route.
But it's not an old ship, is it? It's like only 2020, I think.
I think it's their second newest. What
yeah.
was we on, Arcadia?
No, Iona.
Iona. Arcadia's really old, actually.
Yeah, that's like one of the oldest.
But to be fair, like with everything going on, and that'll obviously probably come on this channel, the boxes are a bit of a tease.
Oh yeah, so
the fact we don't now have to pay for this expensive cruise next year is fine, and we will do something else for our second honeymoon.
So the boxes, as James just mentioned, we have just bought a 1920s bungalow. So I'm currently working on some videos for that. So that's the next thing that you'll see from this channel. This is gonna go live, kind of hoping for like the 27th. So hopefully I've stuck to that. And then the first video of this renovation series, I'm hoping to get live on New Year's Eve, so the 31st. So be interested to see if I make that deadline.
So we'll go.
So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. It was bittersweet but lovely watching everything back and editing it all together. So yeah, hope you enjoyed watching it, and see you soon.